What's up YouTube? This is Brian from Bull Strength coming at you with another video, and today I'm going to teach you how to swing a kettlebell and how not to swing a kettlebell. The kettlebell swing is an excellent ballistic exercise that targets mostly your posterior chain. So basically the muscles associated with deadlifting and squatting are getting hit, but in a much more explosive, ballistic way with the kettlebell swing. It has excellent carryover into athletic sports and also is going to sort of synergize with your posterior chain lifts if you program it correctly. All right, so the first thing we're going to talk about is the setup. So there's a right way to set up with the kettlebell swing and a wrong way to set up with the kettlebell swing, which unfortunately is the most common way that people set up. So the right way to do it is to stand a couple feet back from the kettlebell, so then that way on the first repetition, you get enough momentum to get the weight all the way up. You get a very clean rep on the first rep. Now the wrong way to do it, and a very common way that people do it, is to deadlift the weight up and then slowly buck the weight until they get a clean rep, and then they pretty much start their set, okay? Not only is this bad for your lower back in the long term, but if you're swinging heavier weight, you are basically setting yourself up for injury. So let's take a look at the right way versus the wrong way real quick. All right, so the right way to set up. So I'm a couple feet back. I've got my hands on the bell, okay? What I'm gonna do is sit back into my heels and pull the weight into my hips, right? So I wanna get a lot of momentum back into my hips, literally throwing the kettlebell back, and then I wanna drive outward with my hips. So we're gonna get a very clean first rep off of this setup, right? So throwing it back, and boom, I got the weight all the way up. Now, the most common way that people do it is to stand over the kettlebell, deadlift it up, hold it at hip height, and then slowly buck it until they get a good rep, okay? And for obvious reasons, this is not going to be good for your lower back in the long term. Also, when you're set up on the kettlebell, you want to try to show off your chest as much as you can, right? You want to retract your shoulder blades. Obviously, you're not going to be retracting them all the way. That's going to look kind of goofy, but you do kind of want to show off your chest a little bit. Just kind of pull your shoulders back. All right, now let's talk about the form a little bit. So just like with the setup, we're going to be talking about the right way to do it and the wrong way to do it. So the right way to do a kettlebell swing is to catch the weight high in your hips while loading them up. You want to drive the weight forward by snapping your hips into lockout. As the kettlebell comes back down, you're going to let gravity do the work as you load your hips back up and prepare for another rep. So basically you're preparing your hips to drive the weight out with as much force as you can. Once you catch the weight in your hips, you're going to drive the weight forward by snapping your hips into lockout. This is going to involve squeezing your glutes, quads, and abs at the top of the rep, which should be about parallel with the floor. Now, as far as the breathing goes, as soon as you catch it in your hips and begin driving outward, that's when you should be forcing air out of your mouth as you're squeezing your abs. Remember to keep those shoulders back. You want to keep your back as flat as possible throughout the entire movement. All right, now let's talk about some of the more common flaws with kettlebell swinging and what you can do to actually do it correctly. The first form flaw we're going to go over is using your arms too much with the kettlebell swing. Like I said in the beginning, this is a hip-driven posterior chain targeting exercise. So your arms are not really going to be involved a whole lot other than just guiding the weight. Okay, so I'm going to show you the right way and the wrong way, okay? So the right way, we're swinging, and we're not really gripping the kettlebell too much. There's not a lot of conviction here with my hands. All I'm doing is guiding the weight. I can literally let go of it and still perform this exercise. And this is actually the beginning of being able to do kettlebell juggling, right? So the wrong way to do it is to sort of use your arms to lift the weight up, okay? This is not a front raise. This is not a shoulder exercise. We're not trying to hit your front deltoids with the kettlebell swing. So try not to muscle it. You want to focus on driving with your hips and getting all of your momentum with your hips and not really needing your arms to assist with getting the weight up. All right, another common issue with the kettlebell swing is hyperextension, okay? Well, I see a lot of people do this. So basically at lockout, what they're doing is snapping their hips but leaning back, okay? This angle right here in your lower back is definitely going to set you up with injury. And this applies to deadlifting and squatting too, right? Like if you come up out of a squat, you don't want to hyperextend your back. And same thing with a deadlift. When you lock out a deadlift, you don't want to lean back with it, because the second you do that, you're putting an enormous amount of stress on your lower back. And in the long term, that's just not going to be good. All right, another common issue that I see with the kettlebell swing is something called a soft lockout, right? So not really locking out with conviction. So a soft lockout basically looks like the opposite of a hyperextension. So at the top, I'm kind of leaning forward, and I'm not standing up straight, right? You want to think about standing up straight at the top of the lift, right? That's the point, engaging your glutes and your quads, because that's going to give you a neutral torso once those are fully engaged. Just like that. Okay, as opposed to, it's actually a much more common issue than you would think. But yeah, when you lock out, make sure you're snapping your hips and you're locking out with conviction. And another common issue with the kettlebell swing is letting the weight get too far away from your hips. So like I said, you want to throw the weight back high into your hips. Now the further you let the weight get away from your hips, the more stress it's going to cause on your lower back. So with the right way, I'm throwing it high, it's nice and tight, and I'm bucking it back out. Now the wrong way, I'm letting it swing way too low, and eventually that's going to cause a lot of stress on your lower back. Now I had another strength coach give me a really funny cue back in the day, but I'll share it with you guys. So basically what he said was, at the top of the kettlebell swing, you want the bell to be so close that you want to be able to, he called it the thumb and butt, right? So at the top of the lift, you should be able to flick your thumb out and technically touch your butt, okay? So it's kind of a weird cue, but if you can keep that in mind, hopefully that'll help you in keeping the kettlebell a little bit closer to your hips. And the last form flaw that I have here is kind of more of a nitpicky thing. You know, there's a lot of talk about the Russian style versus the American style swing. And really the only difference is that the American swing goes all the way up overhead, okay? Which, like I said, we're not trying to target your shoulders or your front deltoids, so I don't see the point in going all the way overhead. I pretty much have only seen CrossFitters do this movement. It's not that it's bad, it's not that you're gonna get injured. I just don't really see the point in bringing the kettlebell all the way up overhead. It seems to be exclusively only done by CrossFitters, and just seems to be another thing to add to their list of cringe. Alright, that's pretty much it for the video. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the content, please leave a like and subscribe. If you'd like to support this channel, you can do so through the links below, and I will see you in the next video. Peace out.